You're listening to the Gambling Gauchos, part of the Stake in the Plains Content Network and the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast feed. Just a couple of casino caballeros talking Texas Tech, betting on the Big 12 and beyond. Now, here's Kyle Jacobson and Rob Bro live from the Cardinal Sports Center studio.
Welcome in to the Gambling Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson, live from the Cardinal Sports Center studio. And as the big voice guy told you, thanks to Anthony for updating our open, this is the Republic of Football feed. If you're looking for us, we're on the Republic of Football feed. Go to wherever you download your podcasts and type in Republic of Football, Dave Campbell's Republic of Football. We'll be there. I think in the future, we'll probably just upload everything there. We'll see what happens that way. If you want to gear up for Texas Tech baseball or the upcoming football season, if you have a birthday coming up in the next week, you can go to Cardinals Sports Center, mycardinalsports.com online or in person right outside the loop on Slide Road. Kyle, you look great today as always. How you doing, man?
As always, I love that, man. Thank you. Thank you for that.
That's the hat, mostly.
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. Do you like the pick?
Yeah, I was gonna say we'll get into it. That is having more of an impact on how I'm feeling than it probably should, but that's part of being a diehard sports fan, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've had a busy day, so the NFL draft just kind of caps it off.
Yep.
Shout out to Mrs. Gaucho.
Yeah, happy Dirty 30 to Miss Gaucho.
Dirty 30. Getting old.
She's still young enough I can say her age, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
If you and I are doing this podcast in like 16 years, I probably won't announce that she's like 46. Not that that's old, but
right. Oh, yeah. Young and spry, 30.
I feel like once women hit a certain age, they don't want you to say what their age is. And I don't know exactly what the magic number is. I know it's older than 30, but I feel like a little ways after that, you have to just play it safe just in case.
I'm going to be honest, I thought it was 29. I think that's kind of where it stops, and people just say they're 29 for 20 years. But
yeah, kind of a funny deal getting to know the Gauchos. My wife and I are basically 2 months apart. I'm February, she's April. But every kind of like major milestone in our life has been right in the middle. So like I've always been older. So like I was, let's see, I was 21 when we started dating. She was 20. I was 24 when we got engaged. She was 23. I was 25 when we got married. She was 24. I was 29 when our daughter was born. She was 28. And so anyway, we're not far apart at all in age, and yet those major milestones in life were a different number somehow. So it's kind of funny how that has worked out to this point.
It's like Jacob and Esau, man. Somebody's got to be first.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know how many people are going to catch that one, but I'm glad you did. Steven says it's 40. Ryan says over 35. So
this is where I'm saying there's a gray area, and you don't know for sure, and so you got to just play it safe.
Well, the good news is it'll be you in trouble and not the pair of us. So
very true.
Let's start with Tyree Wilson. He goes to I'm seeing pics of this Cowboys draft pick. This is a large man. He goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. So Raiders to Raiders. We talked about him being a top 10 pick last Sunday. He goes 7th overall. As the week went on, it didn't feel like he was going to be one of those top 5 picks, especially this afternoon. I really thought the Lions were going to take him. They didn't. I did not think the Raiders were going to take him. They did. I like that pick. I like that division. I watch a lot of it already. I think he fits in Vegas. I think Vegas is a really fun place for Texas Tech fans to go watch a former Red Raider. He gets to play Patrick Mahomes twice on the opposite side of the field. So I think there's a lot of good there. And you'll probably see a lot of Red Raiders in Vegas when the Chiefs come to town.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was one of the destinations that I thought was somewhat likely just based on where they were drafting, but certainly thought that, I think we both picked that he would go before 5.5. And so, barring the Raiders trading up, I think we were both expecting a slightly different destination. But there's a lot of upside. And the first, as you alluded to, is the division he's playing in. Last year, when Derek Carr was the Raiders quarterback, I think there was a pretty widespread consensus that Derek Carr was probably the greatest quarterback of all time to be the worst quarterback in his division after the Russell Wilson trade to Denver, because he's there with Herbert and Mahomes. And so in that division, like if you want any chance of winning, you need guys that can rush the passer and or like lock down corners. And so he fits one of the only two positions really that's going to make a dent in that division title race and therefore the playoff race. Do I love that his primary job twice a year is going to be chasing after Patrick Mahomes? No. In fact, I hate it. But he is in a spot where he can have a huge impact on those games. And like I said, if anybody is going to stop Russell Wilson, if the Broncos can figure out their offense, if anybody if anybody wants to stop Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, you need an elite pass rusher to do it. So in that sense, he can create a pretty good profile for himself if he lives up to the hype.
Yeah, and in being in Vegas, I mean, that's a national brand, and they get coverage even when they're not good. I thought they finished the year really strong last year, so I don't think they're a bad team.
I think all year they
Good
were
landing
better.
spot.
I think all year they were better than their record show. I mean, they kept losing really
Yep.
close games. Now they made a quarterback switch. They're moving off of Derek Carr, going to Jimmy Garoppolo. To me, I think that's about an even trade off. Maybe Garoppolo's a better fit, but talent wise, I think it's pretty comparable. So yeah, that was something we talked about was the downside of being a top 5 type prospect is you're probably going to some garbage team. And the Raiders certainly have room for improvement, but I don't feel like they're just some dumpster fire poverty franchise like some other teams that were picking near them. And so, barring a playoff team trading up to go get him in the top 10, I think this is like about as good of a current situation as he can step into, given that he was projected to be drafted so high.
The Big 12 had 4 picks in the top 16. The Big 10 had 4, and the SEC had 8. Alabama had 2 in the top 3. The Pac-12 had 0. The ACC had 0. Did you like? Let's see. We talked about Will McDonald. Did you like him to the Jets?
One more note on Tyree Wilson
Okay.
before we go around the horn in the Big 12. I think part of why you were really wanting to see him go to Detroit was that you could pair him with another young elite pass rusher in Hutchinson.
Uh-huh.
Kind of a different version of that in Vegas.
Yeah.
with
Still white.
Max Crosby. He's, I guess, going into year 5, and so he's 25 years old. Back in 2019, he was runner-up for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's made back-to-back Pro Bowls the last 2 seasons. Now he's a different body type. I think he's a smaller, quicker guy. He's listed at 255, and Tyree Wilson's obviously more in the 275 range. But putting those two guys opposite each other, I don't know exactly. I'm not going to pretend like I know the Raiders' scheme, but feel like Crosby on one end of the line, Wilson on the other is going to make for a really tough tandem. It's going to be hard to double team either one of them with the attention that they should both command. And so I think they should pair well with one another, and hopefully that sets up Tyree for good success there.
And I still think you could put Tyree beside Crosby in some passing situations and twist him. I think he is very versatile, and I think that's part of the reason he went in the top 10, obviously. One other note, first 7th overall pick since Donnie Anderson in 1965. The Golden Palomino.
Yep.
Did you notice we both tweeted that at the exact same time? And then
I did not.
Because yours was better.
I missed that.
It's all right. Yeah, I like the Dave Campbell's pick you used.
And yeah, I saw as well, which I guess I could have pieced this together myself, but he's the highest drafted defensive player, which I have a little bit of nitpicking to do on that because EJ Holub played both ways.
Yeah. Isn't a punter on defense technically? Or is
Did we
that
have a punter
just
go
a
before
transition?
7th overall?
Donnie Anderson is a punter.
Okay, that was
He
not his
punted for the
primary
but he punted
position.
for the Packers.
That was not his primary position.
Yeah, but he punted. He's a
He was
punter.
not drafted as a punter, Rob.
He was drafted as a back/punter.
No.
They knew he was going to punt when he got there.
No. Even if that were true, which it's not, that
That
would be
is true.
that would be a special teams player, not a defensive player.
Yeah. I think kickers are offensive and punters are defensive.
They're special teams. Anyway,
Punters are people too, man.
interesting tidbit there that he becomes the highest drafted defensive player in Texas Tech history. And yeah, the highest drafted at any position in 58 years.
What was Walter Schlinkman?
When?
What did he play?
That's a good. I think he was a running back or a receiver.
He was in 1945 in the top 10.
It's funny going back that far. I've been perusing through some old programs.
Yeah.
The positions that guys play aren't very clear. Like they'll have a player description. They'll be like, he's a stud on the line. And you're like, the
Yeah.
offensive line, the defensive line? Or they'll be like, he's one of the fastest ends in the conference. And back then you're thinking like, is he a tight end, a split end, a defensive end? What does that mean? And so it's almost hard to tell. Now that's more like 1930s that I'm talking about. But it's almost like I don't know what position this guy played. Or they'll be like, "Oh, he's one of the best backs in Texas." Like
Schlinkman, 11th overall pick in the 1945 draft at fullback for the Packers.
Fullback.
Yeah. Lots of B's and T's early, tackles and backs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. And, EJ Holub drafted in the NFL in the second round at linebacker. Obviously, he went in the AFL draft earlier, so he took that job instead, but pretty impressive. And I think this is the first of many top 3-round picks that the Texas Tech's going to have in the next 5 years.
I totally agree. I think you'll live in the 2nd to 5th round going forward. I would be surprised if you're not consistently getting multiple guys drafted every year. Not Alabama or Ohio State, but I think you'll have 2 or 3 draft picks in that 2nd to 5th round range fairly consistently moving forward.
All right, ready for a couple of notes here?
Yes.
1981, Ted Watts, defensive back to the Raiders. 21st overall.
Give me your best Chris Berman, the Raiders.
I just did it when you said that. The Raiders.
That's your best Chris Berman?
Hey, man. I didn't practice, so I wasn't prepared. What's your best?
Yikes. Oh, well, my daughter's sleeping like right across the hall.
Uh-huh. Okay.
The Raiders!
So you start crying. Gabe Rivera, 21st overall to the Steelers. And those are your first round picks until Michael Crabtree. So a couple of 21st overalls.
Yeah, there was some Jordan Brooks erasure on the timeline today as well.
Oh,
Not from Texas Tech fans, but people trying to cover Texas Tech. And I guess they were trying to make it out to be that we have so few first round picks, though. They're like, this is only the second one since 2010, which 2010 is convenient because 2009 Crabtree goes top 10.
Right.
I was like, we have 3 first rounders at defensive end, linebacker, and quarterback in the last, 6 drafts now? 7 drafts? So, miss me with that.
This is also Tim DeRuyter's 3rd top 10 pick.
Von Miller and Kayvon Thibodeau.
And Tyree Wilson. Yep. So that's pretty awesome.
Hey, if you were a
next,
If you're a defensive end and you want to go top 10, you know where to go.
Well, let's say Miles Cole next, and Steve Linton stays for 2 years.
I'm down.
Yeah, then you have 3 in a row.
Miles Cole's going to have the measurables.
Yeah, and you look at it and say, why is Tyree Wilson moving up the boards? Well, he had record-breaking measurables. Did you see the note that he had his wingspan is as tall as Shaq and bigger than Andre the Giant's?
He's wingspan's 1 inch taller than Shaq, and I think he was just shorter than Andre the Giant.
Unreal.
Well, you want to know what's even crazier?
I do.
Miles Cole wingspan is
yeah.
bigger than Tyree Wilson's.
Yeah, that's what I was
So
about to say.
if he gets 12 sacks this year, which is a high bar to clear, but if he does it, he's going to have the production, the film, the measurables. I don't know why he wouldn't be. I don't know if he's going to go top 7 or top 10, but I think he'd be a early rounds draft pick. I don't know why he wouldn't be if he does that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Rest of the Big 12, Will McDonald. Thoughts on him going to the Jets?
So I've got to confess to this. I don't follow, like I think I mentioned last episode, I don't follow NFL free agency that closely. So obviously I know Breece Hall went to the Jets last year. I think with the 32nd pick, but as a second rounder because somebody lost their first round pick. And so on just like a very minor technicality, he was not drafted in the first round. And so that streak of Cyclones not being drafted in the first round since 1973 stayed intact. So when Will McDonald's name gets called by the Jets, I was like, man, they just need to trade for Alan Lazard and just like make it a reunion out there.
Hakeem
And
Butler.
I Google Alan Lazard to get a picture of him and realize he's playing on the Jets now. I was like,
He was
okay,
already there. Yeah.
like they're one step ahead of me. So I, as a Texas Tech fan, that I don't get to watch a ton of the Vikings because they're usually not in the NFL TV footprint for Texas. Getting to adopt the Chiefs with Mahomes there has been a lot of fun, and so I'm excited for Iowa State fans that they can kind of coalesce around the Jets and pull for a lot of guys that they watched in their college years now all together. And on a Jets team that hopefully is a lot more competitive with Aaron Rodgers than they used to be. I can't imagine being a Jets fan for the vast majority of their history has been very much fun. But with those 3 guys plus Aaron Rodgers there, hopefully that's a competitive squad and they have a good time rooting for him. I gotta say, I thought McDonald was going to be like a 25 through 32 type pick if he went in the first round. Was not expecting top 15, but that's awesome for him. I think it, with other pass rushers available there, I think it speaks to how highly the Jets thought of him, and if they hit that eval, then it'll be a really good pick for him.
A couple of picks before Will McDonald was Bijan Robinson. Couldn't think of a better player to go to the Falcons.
Feel bad for him in a way. I mean, he's a legit running back, and I don't think running backs should go round 1 as a general rule. The caveat to that is if your team is just stacked and you have the luxury of not really needing to fill a position there, so you go running back. The Falcons are far from that, and so I don't know. In a way, I think that kind of limits his upside. It's not like they have a potent passing offense that opposing defenses need to respect. So now they do have some playmakers. I mean, they drafted Drake London, I think, in the first round last year, Kyle Pitts. And so maybe they're starting to get something going on offense. I think he'll still be a really good player, but I think he certainly could have landed in a much better position in terms of hitting the ground running right away and being productive immediately. Because I feel like right now teams can just load the box against them, and they do run the ball a ton, so he's going to have some opportunities. I just don't know how fruitful they'll be.
And then Quentin Johnson, the 4th Big 12 player off the board.
Yeah.
He went to the Chargers. Their receivers are getting old. They needed a breath of fresh air there. I think it's a good pick for them. I think he can be a quality NFL wide receiver. But the Chargers right now, I just don't have a lot of faith in them as a franchise. So, hey, fine pick, fine fit. Hope, wish him the best of success there. But Justin Herbert can throw it deep, and he is a pretty good deep threat. So seems to be a good fit.
I think so. I think he pairs really well with what Justin Herbert does well. And like you said, Keenan Allen, pretty old, always hurt. If he's healthy at the same time as Mike Williams and Quentin Johnson, that's an embarrassment of riches in the wide receiver room. I don't know how long they'll be able to keep all three of them together in terms of age and contracts and all that, but Justin Herbert was happy with that pick, and that gives them a ton of opportunities for mismatches. And you're just absolutely screwed if you try to double team one of them and then leave a guy like Quentin Johnson or Mike Williams on an island. So, I don't follow NFL free agency a ton. I don't know what other roster needs they have. I'm sure they have bigger needs in wide receiver, but just from Quentin Johnston's perspective or TCU fans, I think it is an intriguing pick. I think he should be really productive in that offense. And kind of the same deal as Iowa State fans rooting for the Jets. TCU's best NFL player, LaDainian Tomlinson, spent the vast majority of his career with the Chargers. And so I don't know if there's any Frog fans that are holdovers from that era. That was a while ago, but maybe that's a good fit for TCU fans as well.
Yeah, I didn't make that connection. Obviously, you're a big fan of LaDainian Tomlinson. Since we've been talking, Antoine Harrison picked from Oklahoma, offensive tackle to the Jaguars. But let's move on. I don't know that we need to talk about him at all. Jordan Addison, wide receiver from Pitt and USC, goes to your Minnesota Vikings. React to that pick with all the elation you had in the group chat.
Like I said, I guess last episode, there were some murmurs that the Vikings might be looking to get a quarterback of the future. And so I see Will Levis dropping. I think, maybe they're going to pick him. I don't know. They have other more immediate needs. Kirk Cousins is up there, but he's not like about to retire or anything. So they don't need a quarterback this year. Maybe they think they can get a guy in the second or third or something. But that ESPN, I didn't know they had analytics on probability of how long a guy would be available, but apparently they do. And poor Will Levis, they're flashing that on the screen after every pick. They're like, we only thought there was a 0.8% chance that he'd be here at 21, and now it's 0.2, now it's 0.1. And so he's this year's Aaron Rodgers, or just green room guy that's there way longer than anybody thought he'd be. Tell you what, there's never just a 0.1% chance of, Rob, and that's me missing out on the opportunity to go get some Rahino barbecue. You got to partake this week, did you not?
Sorry, the Eagles just made another pick. No, I was on the air, and they were sold out before I even got over there.
Oh, wow. The epitome of brutality.
I drove over there. They were packing up.
That's a bummer, but that's a good lesson for our listeners to learn. They do sell out early. I think somebody was texting us a picture of the line at like 10:45, and it was already backed up. So you can order ahead at RahinoBBQ.com to ensure that your order is reserved and there when you arrive. Give them a follow on social at RahinoBBQ. So anyway, the Vikings don't pick Will Levis, which I'm fine with. I'll let the tape speak for itself. I did not understand the Levis hype. Now, I could have obviously talked myself into it at 23 when he was the favorite to go number 2 overall a few days ago. Instead, I was thinking they'll go defense. Wasn't really thinking wide receiver, but it makes sense in today's NFL. Besides the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes, like any good playoff team has multiple wide receiver threats, or just an elite tight end that basically doubles as a wide receiver. And so Justin Jefferson, obviously the best receiver in the NFL, but you need more than one guy like that. And so you still have a ton of need on defense, and I hope that they are able to address that. But I don't hate the pick. I think Addison at that number is good value, and to have him across from Jefferson, hopefully for many years to come, because they're both young guys, I think can be part of a recipe for success. They just need to of course, address other things. So I'll give it a B plus. It wasn't like a perfect pick because I don't know if that's your greatest need, but it is certainly a need, and I think he's a really good football player. So I was certainly not disappointed with it. Don't think it was a perfect pick, but when you're drafting 23rd and all that, it's kind of you got to make the best of it. And clearly, they weren't willing to maneuver to trade up and go get a particular guy or trade back for more picks. So overall, yeah, I think it was a very solid pick. Is how I would rate it. What do you think?
Let's see. The Dallas Cowboys went and got Michigan nose tackle, defensive lineman, Mozzie Smith. Safe pick. Very safe pick. He'll walk in, be a day one starter at a position of need. I wanted something else. Micah Parsons texted Dan Quinn earlier in the day and told him he wanted Mozzie, so they picked Mozzie, I guess. I don't know how to feel about that, but look, the pro comp on the write-up I read was Vita Vea. I like that. He's 6'3", 3+ bills. He's athletic. He's going to stop the run, which was a problem. If you can have him in there and be better on first and second down, with Dorrance Armstrong at end instead of Micah Parsons, and let Micah Parsons play more linebacker, and then have Micah Parsons situationally rush the passer, I think your whole defense is better. So it's a good pick. It is a safe, solid pick. I wish they would have done something else. What? I don't know. But I probably am going to be mad at every single Cowboys first-round pick just because there's always somebody else on the board that I think is going to be better, and I have Taco Charlton to TJ Watt flashbacks every time they take somebody around this spot. So,
did you want that Utah tight end that it appears the Cowboys wanted and the Bills swooped in the pick before and got him?
Yeah, I think he would have been a good fit on this offense. And I think he's, the Travis Kelce build, somebody who can go out and make plays after the catch. You kind of had that in Schultz, but Schultz inexplicably just laid down and ran out of bounds most of the time. Especially late in games, especially in playoff situations. So he's gone. If the Cowboys would have drafted Jordan Addison, a couple of picks earlier, if they would have been the Vikings, I would have been ecstatic. He could be an absolute bust, but I just want the Cowboys reaching for offense at this point because they seem so satisfied with CD and some bum ass that's been there for 5 years that can't do anything. I apologize for that. Noah Brown. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, and then Micah Gallup, they re-signed him after an ACL injury. He wasn't ready till week 6 or 7. Tony Pollard, your starting running back, is coming off an Achilles burst like 4 months ago. So I don't know. You don't have much juice on offense right now.
The other thing I think about that pick for the Cowboys is they could have traded back 5 spots and probably gotten him. And so I always, and who knows, maybe they were trying and nobody was going to be willing to move up 5 spots and give up a third or a fourth or, whatever the price would be to move up 5 spots at that juncture. And so maybe when the clock is winding down, you just take your guy, even if it's a little bit earlier than you wanted him. But I think that's a fair criticism, is to say, like, this guy wasn't really mocked in the first round very much. We don't think somebody else would have taken him at 25, 26, 27. So why didn't we just move back to one of the first picks? And maybe one of those teams that didn't get a quarterback in the top 10 wants to trade up and go get Levis there or something. Who knows? But I think that's a fair criticism of the pick. I don't think the guy will be a bust or anything. I don't know much about him, but like you're saying, it fits a need. Productive guy from. Did we just get Felix to the Chiefs?
Yes, we did.
Are you serious?
King Felix to the Chiefs, baby.
Go!
That's
Hang on, let me get a tweet off real quick.
So the Eagles pick Nolan Smith, small edge from Georgia, linebacker, kind of a Micah Parsons-esque player. He's a linebacker. He'll be a great edge player in the NFL. I think the Eagles are going to dominate the NFC East for the next couple of years. They did pretty much this year. I just do not think the Cowboys have enough offense this year to be competitive. I know you need a lot more things to be that, and you could go and get Roshan Johnson in the third, fourth round and do some other things that can do, big numbers in the later half of this draft. You could get that Notre Dame tight end in the second round probably and be fine, but he's not really a guy who goes out and punches big. He's kind of a Jason Witten-esque guy. So, but King Felix, that is awesome. Staying in Kansas City, in the area, staying in Missouri, Kansas area, that is great. And the Big 12 now is 6 players in the first round. There was a couple of years you had 0 or 1.
And 4 are new Big 12?
Yeah, you had an Oklahoma and a Texas, and then the rest were new Big 12.
So you had Tyree, Quentin Johnston, Felix, and Will McDonald.
Yep. And we thought Will McDonald would be one of those guys that was going to go around the Chiefs area. But
Yeah,
King
I
Felix,
thought they would.
that's great. Him and Karloftis are going to be a great pair and duo, and along with Chris Jones. And did they get rid of Frank Clark? Is Frank Clark still around?
I don't know. If both of those guys are there and they get Felix and DK Uzama, that's awesome.
Yeah, somebody said you nailed the pronunciation of the name the other day there, by the way.
Yes. Have you seen the clip? It was the Texas Tech game that got Matt Wells fired. Have you seen the clip of Tim Brando butchering it like 4
yeah.
times?
Yes. It's
So
beautiful.
bad. It's a tough name,
It is.
but you're a professional. He's the best player on that team, basically, him or Deuce Vaughn. Like, you should study that the week before and be able to pronounce it.
And quite honestly, it's a great nickname. You could just call him King Felix the whole time.
Yeah. Just make up a stupid name and be like, the big man. Yeah. Instead of stumbling through DK Uzama 4 times.
DK Uzama.
Yeah. DK Uzama.
Yeah.
Dude, let's freaking go. Awesome. I love that pick.
So awesome.
I thought there was a good shot him or Will McDonald would go to the Chiefs at 32, which was a good fit. It's Big 12 stuff. We're Chiefs fans. We love the Farmageddon schools. Perfect.
Let's see if old Mahomes has said anything about it. Anyways, final thoughts on the draft before we move on to some other things?
Well,
expectations in the second round?
You touched on it there at the end. Love that not only the Big 12, but the new Big 12 is showing out. Last year, Sauce Gardner goes, I think, 4th overall, Rookie of the Year. Gets, I think, top 6 or 7 votes for NFL Defensive Player of the Year. It's so you love to see that trajectory because for a long time, and it's still this way, but less so, it was like, okay, 26 dudes are from the SEC or the Big 10, and then there's like a random American or Big 12 or ACC school. But you need some credibility there. And the recruiting rankings out of high school are one thing. The college football playoff, the bowl performances are one thing. But a lot of every collegiate league's perception is going to come back to, are you producing NFL talent? Like how many Pro Bowlers came from each conference? How many first rounders came from each conference? And so you need schools like Kansas State, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, TCU represented in the first round. And they have been, somewhat sporadically, but if you can be there consistently as a new Big 12, and schools like BYU, UCF can also churn out first rounders, and you live in that 4 to 6 every year neighborhood, I think that bestows a ton of credibility onto the conference moving forward, and hopefully combats the narrative that after Texas and OU leave, there's no elite talent left, because I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, and you mentioned him, Sauce Gardner, last year, Rookie of the Year, coming in with Cincinnati, and you've seen some Houston guys show out at the NFL level. So, yeah, really good, really exciting future for the Big 12. And let's see, I think a Pac-12 school finally got picked. Oregon had a guy, I think.
Yeah, he went middle, I think 17th.
Yeah. And then Utah had the tight end. That's it, the 2. 4 new Big 12 schools. The rest, pretty much the SEC. All right. What else you want to talk about? Want to go through the spring game a little bit more?
Yeah, we pretty much just reviewed the prop bets last episode. I still haven't gotten to watch it, but I want your thoughts, and I can maybe kind of react to your thoughts and play off of them a little bit. That's a good comment. John Kurt's got to be happy. I hope he is. I know he's a big Chiefs fan, and that meme that we did every NFL Sunday with Kansas, Kansas State, Texas Tech just got that much sweeter.
Yeah. Especially when they play Vegas.
Yeah.
Ryan says, didn't watch the draft live, but just saw Tyree pick Goodell up off the ground and bear hug him. That was awesome. Watching the Good Morning Football where he did that to one of the hosts, you kind of thought maybe he's practicing, and they kind of talked him into it, and I think they did.
It's like
Pretty
his
awesome.
bit.
Yeah. Picking up Goodell. Okay. People are asking you to predict the future now.
So we just got this from our dear friend David Collier. He said, so that's 6 different current Big 12 schools with a first-round pick. That's more than any other conference, right? That probably sounds right.
Oh, I just
I
closed the draft tracker.
couldn't fact check that on the fly right quick. Obviously, the SEC has had at least Florida, Georgia, Alabama. The Big Ten had at least Ohio State, Northwestern, Michigan,
Maryland,
Michigan
Illinois.
State. Oh, so yeah, they might have 6 as well. And of course, that also includes Texas and OU, which won't be part of the conference moving forward. But that, again, it can't just be 1 or 2 schools. You need kind of everybody pulling their weight to have that perception and credibility on your side. So even if you're tied for the most different schools that have a first-round pick, I think that's a really strong showing. Because, like, it's one thing when Georgia wins the Natty and, like, they have 4 first-rounders. You kind of expect that. That doesn't necessarily speak to the depth of the conference unless LSU, Tennessee, Auburn are also getting guys drafted.
Yeah, so 4 different SEC schools. 3. 4. 5. I think the Big Ten had 5. So there you go.
Speaking of John Kurtz,
Uh-huh.
he tweeted, how many first-round picks for the Big 12 tonight? And it's a picture of King Felix holding up 6 fingers.
Nice. All right. The spring game. I think both quarterbacks looked fine. I think both quarterbacks looked like they were a little bit rushed, not overly comfortable. I think the offensive line struggled against both defensive line units in the first half. Before the game, I noticed the offense was much more into it, excited, hyped, and I thought, all right, the offense gonna take some tail here. That was not the case. And the defense is just kind of an assassin-like workman's energy. And that's very exciting to me because if they're even kill and can just come out and do their jobs, I think that speaks volumes. Steve Linton was an animal. Miles Cole had the tip drill that landed in Baskerville's hands on the second play of the game. It was not like the throw that Tyler Shook had last year. I know that was some people were asking me that, like, oh, you that's what you didn't want to see. It was a tipped ball. It was a dangerous throw into double coverage to the sideline, but it was a tipped ball. I thought both running backs looked good. Taj Brooks looked really good. Valdez nearly broke a couple, but didn't. You did watch the first season of Ted Lasso, yes?
Yes.
So he's here. He's there. He's everywhere. Roy Kent. Roy Kent. You've heard that? You're familiar?
Yes.
He's here. He's there. He's every effing where. Baskerville. Baskerville. That's the chant. He is going to be everywhere. The dude was so fast and looked to be in command of the defense in the spring game. So I'm very excited about CJ Baskerville.
And he's one of, if not the most important individual player on the defense, perhaps, because of how unique and diverse that position needs to be and how well Muddy Waters played it. Like, you're looking at a pretty steep drop off if you go from Muddy down to a guy who can't really play that position. And, it's not a true DB spot. It's not a true linebacker spot. It really is a hybrid. And so you can't just roll anybody down from safety to that spot or something. And so when we got him in the portal, I thought his stats, his tape looked promising, but you just never know for sure how it's going to translate to another level or to another system. So that's good that the early returns are there on CJ Baskerville. How many guys on the defense, like Jalen Hutchings did not play, correct?
Nope. Tony Bradford did not play. Isaac Smith did not play. And Joseph Adedere did not play.
Rashad Williams did not, or is it him or Dunlap who wasn't playing?
Rashad Williams.
Okay.
Dunlap locked Dre McRae up in a basket and shoved the key in his mouth.
So anyway, all that to say, you're not getting a full picture of what. Oh, and Jacob Rodriguez was out on the defensive side, one of your few pieces at inside linebacker that has returning experience at that position. So anyway, all that to say, it wasn't necessarily your full two deep available. And I think Joey said something that most of those guys who sat out, if this was a Big 12 game, they would play. Like, they would be marked as questionable game time decision, but he was like, we're not going to put him out there for a scrimmage in April. But if this was a Saturday in October, they'd be out there. So, you take some of the results with a grain of salt just with that. So with that many bodies on the defensive line missing, were you disappointed at the lack of push from the offensive line in the run game on the opposite side of the ball?
Say that one more time.
With as many guys as were missing from the defensive front, were you disappointed in the lack of push from the offensive line in the run game on the opposite side of the ball?
No. I mean, you ran for 130 yards in the first half, and through the what is it, the red zone period. So I thought you ran the ball fairly well. A couple of those were Tyler Shuck keeping it, and kind of felt unfair because they weren't keying on him because he's the quarterback and has a red jersey on. But I thought you ran the ball well. Now, I will say, I thought inside you looked pretty good. I still think there's a ways to go with these tackles. I know you've moved Caleb Rogers to right tackle now. Look, I like Caleb Rogers. I do. I do not think he is a Big 12 champion right tackle. And if that's what you're aspiring to be, he's just not – he's not the guy.
I'm a little bit surprised given the apparent momentum for Ty Buchanan at the end of last season. I'm surprised that he hasn't supplanted one of the two tackle spots in the spring. And we're still a long ways from Wyoming. We're a long ways from Big 12 play. He could still factor in. But I was half expecting Caleb Rogers to either be rolled inside or to maybe just straight up lose his position to Ty Buchanan.
Hey, Caleb Rogers has been a captain for two different coaches. He has started games every year since he was a freshman. A lot of that was needs-based, but he's given a lot to Texas Tech, and I think he'll get an opportunity to be the starting right tackle for this team. Look, Steve Linton is a badass, and he beat Caleb Rogers several times. I think he's going to beat a lot of right tackles this year in the Big 12. So, I mean, they gave up 4 sacks, I think, that first offensive line. Maybe Shuck got sacked 3 times. It was 2 and 1 maybe from Cole and Linton, but just I was more impressed with the defensive line, and they didn't have 2 key rotation pieces on the outside, and they didn't have their 2 starting defensive tackles. But excited for Baskerville. And another name for you on the defensive line is Blake Burris. I think he'll be in the rotation. He's 6'5", 310, maybe bigger, and had active hands, which I really liked, up and into the body.
Yeah, just to put a bow on the Caleb Rogers discussion, I think he's also a little bit a victim of expectations. I mean, he was a Big 12 Media Days guy last
Yeah.
year.
The captain, yeah.
And that's not always your 3 or 4 best players, but it's also not 3 or 4, walk-on deep snappers. And so when your starting left tackle gets invited to Big 12 Media Days, you expect – and he got better as the season went along, for sure. But like I said, there just seemed to be a decent amount of noise about Ty Buchanan
Yeah.
working into the rotation toward the last few games of last season. So that's why I just thought it was trending in the direction of, okay, maybe Mills and Buchanan will be the tackles for spring ball, and starting off in 2023, and maybe they work Caleb Rogers on the interior somewhere. So I don't know. I guess that's another position battle to maybe continue to follow in fall practice. I don't think that every single spot on the 2 deep is determined yet, and so it's not to say that there couldn't be more movement there. And he's a guy with experience, and I think at a position like offensive line, that is valuable. He's a guy that's been a 2-year starter, and it's hard to replace that many snaps and games and starts. So anyway, yeah, that's just another position that we'll, I think, continue to watch in the fall.
Leaving the spring, I think Taj Brooks is in Sharpie as the starting running back. I think Jermaine Bradley and Miles Price are in Sharpie as 2 of the first receivers on the field. I think Baylor Cupp is in Sharpie as the first tight end on the field. I think your guards and center, Spencer, Stats, and Wilburn, are in Sharpie. I don't think either tackle is. I think there's going to be a lot of conversations about the other 3 wide receiver pieces as well. I think Nehemiah Martinez, Loic Fungi, Dre McCray will all be in the mix.
And there's another portal window.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll be terribly active. A lot of your spots are accounted for, and you sort of saw that with some movement after the spring scrimmage. A lot of guys decided to look elsewhere for more playing time, and we wish them luck in that endeavor. But if there's 1 or 2 positions of need where they go, we're looking for a guy who can compete as a starter at middle linebacker or left tackle, maybe you address that in the portal. I think at this juncture, you don't want to count on it, and you want to feel like you can move forward with the guys you have now, but there could still be, again, I don't expect a lot, but you could add maybe 2 guys in the portal potentially that you think will be competing for starting spots come August.
Yeah, so Joey mentioned 18 guys in this upcoming high school class. I do not know if he knew these other guys were leaving at the time he said that. But I would assume you've either moved to 22 high school players, or you're going to go get 4 transfer portal guys either now or at the beginning of the year. If you got one, let's say you get one in the next window, I think it'll be an offensive lineman. I think you probably need 1 offensive lineman in a rotation. I really like so I gave you the starters. I think there are offensively. Defensively, I think your entire secondary, if they're healthy, is set in stone. That's Dunlap, Williams, Baskerville, Rabbit, and Owens. Defensive line, Hutchings and Bradford, Cole, and Linton. I think that 4 will be the starting 4 with Isaac Smith in heavy rotation and Adedire in heavy rotation. And then Josiah Pierre, I think, will be the starting middle linebacker with Jacob Rodriguez. I think that's your starting defense.
We think, not to open Pandora's box here, but we think Tyler Shuck will be the starter. He's the favorite.
Yeah, I didn't mention that.
I don't think you have a position battle there, but you also didn't mention his name in Sharpie. What plus odds would you need on Morton to throw $20 or $100 at it?
I think it's a lot closer than the coaches want to say it is.
If I gave you plus 300 today, how do you feel about that number? That Morton is the starter against Wyoming?
I wouldn't take that. Against if you gave me plus 300 in the Big 12 opener, I would be much more apt to do that.
Sure.
Not that Shuck will get benched or whatever else, but hey, we're going to play both guys against Wyoming. All right, Shuck will be the first one, but if you're going to have guys get opportunities, I think this is a quarterback competition. And if it was, Tyler Shuck was not as good as Baron Morton in the spring game. But they both threw interceptions, and I don't think either of them had to check plays at the line of scrimmage, which is allegedly where Tyler Shuck is so far ahead of Baron Morton.
Yeah, I don't think it's likely. I'm not trying to stir the pot, but Baron Morton is also an extremely talented backup quarterback who I wouldn't guess in between his ears he's going into thinking, yeah, I'll be the backup this season. I think he's probably working all spring, all summer to try to at least make the coaches think long and hard about it. And the spring game is the only practice we saw. Maybe 90% of the other reps in the 14 other practices, Shuck is just markedly better. Who knows? But I'm not willing to totally close the book on that. Even though I don't think it's a true coin flip, I don't think it's a true position battle. I also, like you're saying, I don't think Shuck's name is in Sharpie quite yet either. And I think that's a good thing. I think you want both guys pushing each other. I think they have different strengths and weaknesses, and that allows Zach Killey to maybe lean and say, okay, the offense might look one way with Shuck, and we'd have another version of it with Morton, and maybe that plays into it as well. So I think any competition at any position is good for the entire team.
I think maybe erasable pen. Certainly a level of permanence, but it's not pencil. It's not Sharpie. It's not quite, Papermate Flare felt tip, but it's not quite just in there willy-nilly. Or you want to hit the you know what? I was thinking, I was just watching another video of Tyree Wilson getting squeezing Goodell. You think Goodell hurt his back or something? He might have somebody to call on that.
First off, I think that's something Goodell would do. Just seems like this would be actually one of the rare cases where I would say don't call Barnett, Howard, and Williams, because I don't think Barnett, Howard, and Williams would want to prosecute Tyree Wilson, one of their own. But in all other instances, if you do need somebody in your corner, call our friends over at Barnett, Howard, and Williams, bhwlawfirm.com. Fort Worth's finest, but they handle cases all across the state of Texas. 3 double Texas Tech grads. They do family law, criminal defense, catastrophic injury. One of the only law firms in Texas that's certified for Title IX student litigation. They hope you never need them, but they are here for you if you do. Should a 6'6", 275-pound man pick you up, squeeze your back, and lift you 4 or 5 feet into the air?
That would certainly be a catastrophic injury for me.
Yes.
All right, let's get to the Diversified Lenders mailbag. Diversified Lenders, double owned by 2 Red Raiders, 2 generations of Red Raiders at that. If you need to turn your accounts receivable into cash, you can go to diversifiedlenders.com and find out more. I'm going to change the wording on a couple of these questions. First one, if somebody got a Gambling Gauchos tattoo, could they have a lifetime membership to the Patreon?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think if somebody wanted to get a Gambling Gauchos tattoo, we would grant lifetime access to the Discord for sure.
I'm not encouraging anybody to do that, but if that were done, I think that would warrant a lifetime subscription.
I'm encouraging people to do that. Wikipedia has pages on the current football rivalries with Texas, TCU, Baylor, and Houston, not including Texas. Which are you most apathetic towards?
Do you want to know what's really interesting about that question, Rob?
What?
I was brushing up on some history, and I was on I don't remember if it was Texas Tech or Texas A&M Wikipedia page, and it was listed as a former rivalry, which I thought was curious because it has not been listed that way for years and years, even after A&M left for the SEC.
Huh.
So I go to A&M's page, and somebody has stricken all of their Big 12 rivalries. Somebody who's editing the A&M Wikipedia page is playing that card of like, oh no, Tech, Baylor, that's not a rivalry. Our rival is LSU and all that crap.
Huh.
So anyway, just the timing of that question, because I discovered this maybe within the last couple of weeks, and I just can't imagine the sad soul who 11 years after departing for the SEC is like, I'm going to go back and edit the Wikipedia page just so nobody thinks that we're rivals with Texas Tech. I think it's weird when any fan base, and an Oklahoma State fan did this to me on the AI rivalries, when you're trying that hard to prove that something isn't a rivalry,
Yeah.
it's just weirdo behavior. And I don't get why some fan bases get upset by that term. Like if a Houston fan told me that they're excited for the Texas Tech Houston rivalry, I'd be like, yeah, like West Texas versus East Texas, city versus rural, old Southwest Conference, in state. Like, yeah, let's like, is it a rivalry like Michigan, Ohio State? No, but it's an in conference, in state rivalry,
Yeah, I think people put too much stock in the word.
I do too. And like, so the Oklahoma State deal, like, okay, we're not in the same state, but we've played each other 50 times. We're in the same conference. We're in the same region. We're roughly equidistant from DFW, which is probably where we pull most of our students and our student athletes from. Like, it's okay to just acknowledge that we both want to beat each other and that it's a rivalry.
So would you go Houston on that, or?
What was the question again?
Between TCU, Baylor, and Houston, who are you most apathetic toward?
TCU, Baylor, and Houston. Yeah, I would say right now, most apathetic toward Houston, but I think that could build into something once they get in the fold here in the Big 12 and you get 5 or 10 years of that under your belt. That could be something legit. But with Baylor right now, you've got the Joey stuff. The all-time record is neck and neck. I think they're like 2 games ahead of you. You were ahead of them for the longest time until the Bryles era, basically. And then the TCU stuff with Sonny Dykes with the Cactus thing last year with them going to the playoff, like that's a pretty – you haven't beaten them in, I think, 4 years. So, yeah, I would say both of those carry more weight right now. But I'm not trying to be dismissive and claim that Houston is not a rival.
Power rank your beer preference. Good, free, cold. So I'm not going to power rank. We'll start bench cut. Good beer, free beer, cold beer.
I think cold does a lot. I'd rather have a cold, terrible beer that I don't care for, like a Bud Light, than a free or a good, like a room temperature beer. Like Dos Equis is probably my favorite beer, but if it's room temp, I'd rather have an ice cold Bud Light or something. No free ads. I'm mentioning a lot of beers here. And then free doesn't.
Bud Light would go to the first off the mind.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of Bud Light. And then free doesn't do much for me. I feel like you get what you pay for to some extent. If somebody wants to hand me a good free cold beer, great. But would I rather pay $4 for a cold draft of a beer that I want versus just like a free? Like one time I was drinking beers in the parking lot at the Matadors game with Mr. Root and Jody, and it was like floorboard room temperature Coors Light, and it was free, but I can't say it was a very good beer. So I would have rather paid $4 in that moment to have something that was ice cold.
So you're starting cold?
Yeah, start cold, bench good, cut free.
Very eloquacious tonight. I think I would start free, bench good, and cut cold. It's because when I think of cold, I think of the Twin Peaks 29-degree man temp or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
That's just too cold, man. It's too much ice. It's too cold.
Especially if the bottom falls out because of the mug. Back in the day, have I ever told you about the Applebee's bartender who used to give me free beer?
No.
It was a
Did
good
he
setup.
like
So getting to know the Gauchos when I was in grad school at Tech, it was night school, and so the classes were from like 6 to 8:50.
Yeah.
Which is like that pretty much occupies any window of reasonable dinner time. But Applebee's starting at 9 had like 50-cent wings. They had free chips and salsa if you sat at the bar. So I'd go to Applebee's like three days a week, and get 10 wings for $5, free chips and salsa as like my side, and I would get a beer, and like I got to know the bartender really well, and so he just like quit charging me for them. Or like if I got three, he charged me for one, and it's smart on his part because I would just tip what I would have paid for the beer, so the money's going directly into his pocket instead of Applebee's corporate or whatever. That was a good setup though. That Applebee's out at 4th and Milwaukee. I lived there. They had my picture on the wall for a little while. That's a true story.
For what?
For being their number one customer.
I wonder if I ever went in there when you were there. Was that circa 2010, 11?
Like 15,
Oh, you're
16.
young. 15.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. I proposed to my wife at Applebee's.
Did you ever do the Tuesday karaoke down there at the Applebee's on
You're
4th?
just gonna brush right past that.
I didn't want to make fun of you for that.
No, they shut down karaoke shortly after I started going because it got out of hand.
Yeah, it did. We got rowdy there a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah, I like went in there one time and they weren't doing it, and I was like, "Hey, what happened to like isn't this karaoke night?" And they were like, "No, dude, like it got so crazy. We can't do that anymore." I was like, "Okay." Must have been a wild time.
That's a pretty sad day for you when they closed that joint down, wasn't it?
I think yeah, although it was pretty close to when I moved, and so part of why I went there was like it was the only restaurant out there for a while.
Yeah.
It might still be. I haven't been out that way in a while. But yeah, they closed down, so that kind of took away my go-to, and then I moved shortly after, so it wasn't as big of a deal.
So you were on 4th in Milwaukee. I was a little further in at 4th in Frankfurt. Cujo's. Because I lived on Dartmouth, back across near Erskine, back there. Getting to know the Gauchos.
I lived on 7th and just east of Milwaukee. It was a K Street. I can't remember what it was called though.
Is that true? Maybe on a carrot stick?
No, I didn't actually propose to my wife at Applebee's.
Oh.
It was part of.
So you were baiting me into saying something.
Do I need to explain this?
I mean, you can.
So the proposal was like a scavenger hunt, and because especially when I was in grad school, we spent a lot of time at Applebee's, kind of leaning into it, understanding that that's not very romantic. Applebee's was like a comical stop on the scavenger hunt, but also like where we went on our first date and all that was also on the scavenger hunt. But like, especially because it was right by my house, which is where the scavenger hunt started.
Where was the first date?
The first date. Thanks for putting me on the spot, Rob.
You brought it up.
I guess it kind of depends on what you would count as a first date.
I thought you said it was on the
Well,
scavenger hunt.
like we met on campus, so I think that was.
Oh, I got you.
I guess probably our first date was like her sorority formal, which was funny because we went to conference.
Was it Sadie Hawkins?
Yeah.
Nice.
So anyway, I tell everybody that I proposed to my wife at Applebee's, even though that's not the full story.
Fair. I'm gonna double down on the good free cold. Start, bench, cut, can, bottle, draft.
Kind of depends on the mood I'm in and the beer.
So it's dose.
Generally speaking, I would start a long neck ice cold beer.
Never let you down.
Probably bench, draft, but it's got to be cold though. That's my one gripe about draft. Sometimes it's not as cold. And then canned, still really good. Canned is great, like post lawn mowing beer.
Yeah.
Or like a pool beer.
Game beer.
Yeah. So I mean, it's all good. I'm starting all three, but that's the order in which I'm starting them.
Start, can, bench, draft, cut, bottle.
Man,
I'm a can man.
I'm craving a beer now.
I got some Lone Stars in the fridge. You want one? I saw some spicy mango ranch waters.
I'm not a ranch water guy. I don't like ranch water.
These can ones, I mean, it's not tequila. It's just like a malt beverage. They taste like Truly.
Summer like 2019 or 2020, everybody was all about ranch water, and I just couldn't do it.
You ever had of course, he's going to start the schooner. You ever had a real ranch water? Like from a bar? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you like tequila?
No.
Start, bench, cut, Patron, Terramana, and Casamigos.
I don't know.
I'm a tequila guy. I'd start Terramana.
Blame it on Patron. Got you in the zone.
Bench, Casamigos.
Blame it on the alcohol.
Start, bench, cut, Jamie Foxx features.
Man.
Let's see. We got that one. We've got you got the Marvin Gaye, Luther
Slow
Vandross.
dance.
Yeah.
With Twista.
Yeah. And then obviously Gold Digger.
Did you tell her to drive over in your new whip? Bring some friends she's cool with?
Yeah. All right. Worst positions to spend a top 10 pick on?
Running back.
Running back.
Can we talk about the Lions? This is off topic. They have, starting at number 12, they have 5 picks in the next 43, and they go running, not just running back at 12, not like Bijan or Saquon at 12. Some guy that, Rob, I don't know if I'd ever noticed him in a mock draft before.
What? From Alabama.
They could have had him at 16. They could have had him at 30, 40, 45, whatever.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And you took DeAndre Swift 2 years ago in the second round.
Yeah. And he's not there anymore, I don't think.
Makes no sense.
If he's there, he wasn't the lead back. And I don't think they re-signed their lead back this year.
He was hurt most of last year. Jamal Williams did fine. But that's my point, is like you plug in DeAndre Swift, you plug in Jamal Williams, and they're all basically replacement level. So you draft this guy out of Alabama who's like, in my opinion, nothing special. Again, you could draft Kareem Hunt in the 4th round or go get some free agent that nobody else wanted to pay. Like, you're going to get the same level of production.
Yes.
Especially if you have a good offensive line. And so draft O-line there.
How long do you think you could hang out with that Cowboys fan with all the sirens on his head before you'd want to kill him? 5 minutes.
3 seconds.
Yeah. It would take one siren blow and I would walk away. Kyle, let's say you go to a concert. Let's say it's at a nice amphitheater. Where are you standing? / sitting.
Oh.
Let's say you got maybe some seating. You've got a front row section and you've got the grassy knoll in the back. What start, bench, cut?
The grassy knoll, huh?
Yeah, hill, whatever.
I would like to be kind of like centered, but back a ways.
So in the
Not a
seats or all the way back in the grassy knoll?
grassy knoll. I'm not in the mosh pit.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not fighting for stage time. I don't need an up close and personal view, but I want to be straight on. So far enough back that I'm not in the fray, but straight on view.
Have you been in the amphitheater at the fairgrounds?
Like the Lone Star Amphitheater.
Oh, it's been the Lone Star. It was the Dose. It's been 1,000 different
Yeah, I
things.
went and saw the Toadies.
Oh, no. The Texas State Fairgrounds, not the Lone Star
Oh, no.
in Dallas.
I was talking about Lubbock.
Yeah, that's a good one too. But the setup is like that. We went and watched Mumford and Sons,
Nice.
and I was a grassy knoll guy. But I've been to a bunch of concerts. I would never stand up front near the speakers. That's just not my thing. And people like pushing up on you and stuff. That's not me.
Are you a big Mumford guy?
I was in 2012 or whenever we went.
What's your favorite Mumford song?
Oh man, Lionheart, Little Lionheart, probably.
Little Lion Man?
Yeah, it's been a while. Lion Man, yeah.
That was like their first one.
Hi, Little Lion. That one. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I could do a
Yeah.
good Mumford impersonation.
It's been a long time since I've listened to Mumford and Sons.
I like Roll Away Your Stone. Do you like that one?
Yeah, I remember that one. I would honestly have to look up more Mumford and Sons. The Wolf, Babel. One of my Babel.
They say Babel because they're British.
Oh, okay. My favorite thing about the Mumford and Sons show, very similar to the Old Crow Medicine show. Another one of my favorites back in the day. Getting to know the Gauchos. They just all share instruments. It's just like, hey, you play the banjo this time. I'll just pass it around. Old Crow did that too. Went to Old Crow at the fairgrounds. They moved it inside to like the little arena thing. And there's like this guy, just office rocker, either meth or something else. And he was just like doing the hoedown right beside us. And we were all just like, what the hell's going on?
When we're in Laramie in a few months, we need to find a jukebox and put some Mumford on and go like Irish pub, like have everybody swinging their mug, singing along to whatever Mumford song. I know they're not Irish, but it's that kind of vibe for me.
Another band like that just shares instruments is the Avett Brothers, which I was a huge fan of. That's my favorite band.
Yeah, they're good.
Kick Drum Heart. Love Like the Movies.
No Hard Feelings.
No Hard Feelings. Ain't No Man.
I mean, they have a lot of good ones.
Oh, man. They just straight.
Murder in the City.
Yeah. Shame. Mm-hmm. Solid. Is the reliance on RPI for the baseball tournament an indication of man handing over their powers to computers, and can I blame AI?
I think college basketball was wise 4 or 5 years ago whenever they switched to net, which maybe net isn't perfect, but it is better than RPI. And for too long now, college baseball programs have been able to manipulate RPI. Like Dallas Baptist, I feel like is a poster child for this. They throw their second, third, and fourth best starters on the weekend in the Patriot League or wherever they are. And then they throw their ace against TCU's fifth best pitcher on a Tuesday night. And they win that game, and it looks like they beat TCU, which they did. And so they were like RPI top 4 at one point last season doing that. And it's like, come play a weekend series, week in and week out against Texas, Texas Tech, TCU, Oklahoma State, and try that crap and like see what your RPI is.
Yeah.
And so I've seen fans like not even of Texas Tech, but see that we're ranked 14th in D1 baseball, but we're a 3 seed in D1 baseball's projections. And they're like, hey, what's the deal with this? Then it gets explained to them, well, their RPI is 64 or 62 or whatever it is. So, yeah, I think like something is up there when Texas Tech has lost one weekend series and it was on the road against Texas without their best relief pitcher. And like everybody else, they've I'm not talking about like midweek one-offs, but like you beat Oklahoma State, you beat TCU, you beat OU, you beat Iowa, you beat Gonzaga. Like those aren't great RPI teams, but I don't know. I feel like maybe the formula needs adjusting or something because we're clearly not the 60-something best team in the country. Now I don't know if we're 14th best either, but
Somewhere in the middle.
we're effectively shut out from hosting right now, and I feel like you should still be on like the fringe conversation if RPI weren't being considered. It was like, okay, if you finish first or second in the Big 12, you should have a somewhat decent argument most years.
Yeah.
Now, if you finish fourth in the Big 12, probably not. But it almost just doesn't matter what you could basically win out and your RPI would still be 32 or something, and you're still not really in the host conversation very seriously. So yeah, I think if baseball could find its version of basketball's net rankings and find a way to maybe weight the midweek in the same way that, because here's another thing about baseball, home and away is not really, in my understanding, is not a factor in quad one, quad two. So if you go on the road and beat Stanford, counts the same as if you beat them in Lubbock. Whereas basketball, very specific. There's home, neutral, and away.
Right.
Different net rankings means a different quad one, quad two, whatever. So I don't know. I would like to see an adjustment in the formula so that teams can't game the midweek for their benefit and that maybe one or two bad losses doesn't drag you down so much. Because it's like you lose to New Mexico, you plummet. You beat Stanford and Palo Alto, and you move up like 2 spots. And in my opinion, like that win is just as good as that loss is bad. And so they should be weighted a little more equally, in my opinion. So I hope they can figure out a new formula because, I don't think RPI is very good.
Agree. And I also agree you can blame it on AI and the alcohol. Who gets away with worst forecasting the most? Meteorologists, armchair quarterbacks, or draft analysts?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this. I think draft analysts get too much flack because people only remember when they're dead wrong. And there's 200 guys drafted every year. And you do it for 20 years, that's 4,000 guys. And they're like, oh, but you said Jimmy Clausen was going to be good back in 2006. Like, yeah, but that's one guy out of 4,000. And usually there's what does Nate Silver call that when polls for political candidates, they start like if one pollster sees 3 or 4 polls go one way, they kind of like group their poll in with that. And so these consensuses form. It's like, okay, Tyree Wilson is no longer top 20, he's top 5. And so like everybody thinks Tyree Wilson is top 5. And so they all, for the most part, I think either kind of hit on prospects or miss on prospects together. Very rarely does one of them go out on a limb and say that a top 10 guy is going to be a bust or that a guy in the 5th round is going to be a Hall of Famer. So I actually think they get too much heat for that.
I don't think armchair quarterbacks are prevalent enough to get any kind of.
Yeah, they have zero. That's zero credibility.
And then meteorologists, I think 10 years ago, I think you had a lot more blame the meteorologist guy. But now, literally anybody could do it because they just read computer models. Like,
Well, I
there's
don't
no
know if that's
guesswork anymore.
I don't know if that's fair to our friend Matt Ernst. I feel like
he's great.
He's good
He's
at
great.
his job.
Yeah, he's great.
But yeah, I do feel for them because it's the same as sports analytics in a way. Like you tell people 60%, and what they hear is majority, and so it must be 100%.
Right.
So you lose a game that you had a 60% chance to win, and people are like, oh, well, how did this happen? It's like, well, that's barely better than a coin flip. That's how it happened. Like, it's like acting shocked when it winds up being tails 2 out of 5 times. So when the weatherman tells you there's a 60% chance of rain and it doesn't, like, okay, yeah, there was a slight expectation that there would be rain, but this was. So again, I think they take too much heat, just like the NFL draft experts.
Will we see someone rock a split Tyree Wilson jersey next year? 1/2 black and silver, 1/2 scarlet.
I got to be honest, I don't know if that would go over very well at the Raiders' home stadium. I don't think their fans are particularly hospitable. And I recognize the irony in saying that as a Texas Tech fan, that our fans get that reputation, in my opinion, unfairly. But like here's the key difference. I'm always about the evidence. Like, okay, if batteries are being hurled at you, take a picture of one of the batteries. But like, there's videos of Raiders fans not being super pleasant, and so if you show up with a half Chiefs jersey, I don't know if they'll.
No. Half Tech.
Oh, I thought you were saying like half Mahomes,
No,
half Tyree Wilson.
Tyree Red Raider, Tyree Raider uniform.
Do it one better and go into thirds and put his high school, because his high school was also the Raiders.
Yeah, that's what Ryan said next. Slowpoke, real life. Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Tough son.
I thought you were saying that they didn't like the color red in Compton.
No, just I don't think Raiders fans would like any part of an away team's jersey in their stadium.
Yeah, okay. Does another Red Raider get drafted? What'd you say?
They also don't play in Compton. They're in Las Vegas. So
yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot.
That was like 2 moves ago.
Yeah. Well, I bought a Los Angeles Raiders hat today. It says Las Vegas, but it's the NWA hat. So that's what I was thinking.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you see
A
that?
little Las Vegas, and then it says Raiders in script like this.
Did you see the 30 for 30 with Ice Cube talking about the Raiders?
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Really
I haven't
good.
seen that in a long time. But
what's your favorite 30 for 30?
Man. I may not have seen it yet. I haven't seen the whole library. The U is good.
The U is really good.
I don't know if the first season was better or if I'm just nostalgic for it, because if you remember
season was the best.
When 30 for 30 first came out, it was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. I think the SMU one, the Pony Excess.
Pony Excess was great.
Is up there.
The one about the OU running back, Dupree, was a great one.
The best that never was.
Mm-hmm.
Or the greatest that never was. I saw the one about the 86 Mets last summer.
Yeah.
Really liked that one.
We used to do a bit on a previous podcast I had of future 30 for 30s, and we just would write scripts for 30 for 30s. What if I told you? And then we just go on. We did one for Baker Mayfield.
That was actually in my opinion, way overused tweet format for a little while. It's like any sports thing happens, people are like, oh, the 30 for 30 on this is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, there aren't going to be 50 30 for 30s produced every year. Like, not everything can be a 30 for 30.
Yeah. Oh, we were doing a bit.
Yeah, I know you were, but like other people were. It was like,
I wonder if I could find that audio.
How about Todd Marinovich? Have you seen that one?
The Packers offensive lineman?
No, Raiders quarterback out of USC.
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
I think it was a 30 for 30. It might have been just an E60.
What was the Packers offensive lineman bust?
Oh,
Todd something.
I know who you're talking about.
The Oklahoma linebacker. That one was a good one too.
The Boz.
The Boz.
Yeah, I need to watch some more 30 for 30s this offseason. I really like those.
My podcast was called the Broadcast.
I'm a little hurt because I thought I was your first podcast partner, if we're being honest here.
You thought so?
Yep.
Yeah. I like 17 podcasts, Kyle.
Oh, wow. So I'm just another podcast host to you?
No, man, you're the best. I did a Texas Rangers podcast called the Ranger Danger. Like Stranger Danger.
Yep.
I did another one called Agree to Disagree. Some have said that's the best podcast that ever existed, but
was that a lot of like embracing debate?
Yeah. Yeah, mostly.
I feel like you and I could do that, and maybe we have a reputation for arguing with each other or something. But I think honestly, I holster the majority of it. I think you do too. But if you and I wanted to get on here and like do Skip Bayless back and forth with each other, I think this could be a total train wreck of a podcast.
Should we do that? Should we do a podcast series in the summer? Maybe Patreon only. Just embrace debate. We pick a 10. Let's have the Picadors pick 10 subjects, sports subjects, and we pick a side and argue for 20 minutes, Patreon only, embrace debate.
If the Picadors want it, I will totally indulge them.
Okay, that'll be fun. I think SoundCloud has deleted our broadcast, though.
Well, screw SoundCloud then.
We also used to do, we didn't have any ads, so we did fake ads. And one of them was around when Richie Incognito was throwing weights at people and like, did he try to fight his dad or something? So we did the Richie Incognito retirement home. Yeah, that podcast was before its time. That guy's on the radio now. It's the only one of us. Tomorrow's my last day on the radio.
Yeah, congrats on that.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Are you like going out with a blaze or anything?
They have a party for me scheduled at 1:00.
Right as the show ends.
That's when my show starts.
Oh,
They just never know. That's part of the reason I'm leaving. They just can't figure it out. They don't even know when I'm on air, man.
That's pretty. I
They're
just
starting
assumed
to
you weren't
vote.
doing the Rob Bro show if they had scheduled it at 1.
No, why would I give away my last show to?
I don't know. You told me the party is at 1, and I was like, okay, well, that's like when the Raiderland ends.
No, man, that's just these people don't.
That's just how they roll.
Hey, everybody, meet at 1:00. We're gonna say goodbye to Rob, and wait for an hour while he finishes his actual show.
Oh
my God! I mean, it's just when you think they care about you, man, they don't even know when you're on. Final thoughts?
You asked me if I thought another Tech player would get drafted.
Oh yeah, that was the last question in the mailbag.
I think Muddy Waters might. And it would take a perfect storm in a sense, but if a team feels like they have a very niche or specific need for a special teams guy, a hybrid guy, some third down packages, whatever, and they see his skill set, I think somebody might bite in the late rounds. I think Sir Roderick Thompson is maybe equally likely. I don't know how his measurables stack up, but would somebody take him just to have a camp running back in the 6th or 7th round? Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I think if I had to lean towards somebody being the most likely, I would maybe say Muddy Waters.
Not Sir Roderick?
I think Muddy is more likely than Sir Roderick.
I think they're both.
But I do think it's close.
I think they're late options there.
Yeah.
Both of them. Sneaky pick Krishan Merriweather. But I don't think anybody beyond that. I'm really trying hard to find some broadcast over here. I can't do it. It's tough, man. I'll have to find some spots for you. Send them over. You can listen to them on your own time. All right. Final thoughts?
It's almost your birthday, right?
It is.
May 1st.
Monday.
You didn't like that I tweeted that as breaking news.
Well, when you don't sign it or anything, people just think I'm tweeting trying to drum up business for my birthday.
Big Hen thinks it was me who tweeted at him about Ryan Tannehill. That was you.
Can he? I was serious question. He's not going to go play quarterback.
Yeah.
Also tweeted him a picture of a chicken getting put to sleep today. So.
I think we can maybe end it there.
All right, man. You got to say the magic words, man.
One final thought. I'm glad that Iowa State broke their streak from 1973. Coach Beans was giving me a hard time for pulling up old George Amundsen, who used to ball out back in Dickety 6 in the old Big 8 conference. Glad Will McDonald broke the streak for Iowa State. And Felix Anudike-Uzomah to the Chiefs. Pretty perfect in terms of the Big 12 going in round one, and Quentin Johnson to the Chargers, also a good fit. So that's my final thought. I think it was a good – I'm just going to embrace the fact that I'm a Big 12 homer from now on and start doing some SEC chants, but BIG. So I'll end it on a high note and say it was a good first round for the Big 12.
Maybe a go Big 12. Go Big 12.
I bet your Mark will come up with something.
Well, we had the song.
He's been quiet lately.
Hey, younger, hipper, cooler, man.
It's been a couple weeks since Brett Yormark, did something innovative, and I don't know, I feel like he might be cooking something up right now. But it's like a 13-hour brisket, so he's slow cooking something really good.
Kyle, have I ever shown you my favorite dance move?
No.
It's called the pancake. It was a party rob trick back in the day when I used to go full party rob mode.
Mm-hmm.
I retired that part of me, though. I kind of snuck through one time when we were hanging out.
How do you do the pancake? What's the pancake?
Oh, it's like I'll show you sometime. I'll show you in Laramie. I got to get a couple beers in.
Oh, dude, Laramie's gonna be so fun.
I'm very excited. I'm excited for Denver, and then Laramie. The combo, and then Oregon. When are we gonna announce the thing we have cooking? We need to ask them when they want to announce.
We have a lot to announce for several weekends in the fall.
Yeah.
I think we need to make sure that everything is final before we announce.
Yeah, that one I think we should announce, maybe when we start the countdown for reels.
Yeah, because we need to
Around
tell people
100 days. Yeah.
We need to tell people to book their plans early.
Yeah. A day early.
Can I give the people just a little sneak preview?
Yeah, sneak it, man. Sneak it.
So obviously we'll be in Lubbock for all the home games. Oregon is the biggest non-conference home game since when, Rob?
Oh, man. I mean, Arizona State, but this seems way bigger.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona State wasn't ranked. When's the last time you played a ranked non-con opponent at home?
I mean,
in NC State?
NC State?
Back in Cliff,
Yeah.
like what was that, 01? 02, whenever that was?
03?
I think that one you could say was comparable. Phillip Rivers, NC State. I don't think it was as big as USC in the 70s, but this is probably on a short list in terms of the last 50 years. So anyway, we have something special for that. It'd be really cool. And we're going to go on some road trips too. And so Laramie, Wyoming, first one out of the gates. If you don't know, that's a pretty unique and historic venue. It's the highest elevation stadium in all of college football, at least at the FBS level. Maybe all of college football. I don't know. We'll be there. We're taking, I think, a pretty good sized group with us. I imagine there will be a lot of red and black in Laramie and in Denver the night before. Some of our new Big 12 brethren. I think the only new one that you get to go to is BYU. You're hosting UCF in Houston. So I think a lot of people view Provo as a scenic place, maybe a destination kind of venue, and I think we might view it the same way. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. I don't know why my mic is falling down today.
And then in the state of Texas, you'll have Baylor and Waco. Texas and Austin.
I've heard this song.
So, anyway, we've discussed some of this in our Discord server, which to get access to that, patreon.com/gamblinggauchos, $5 a month. if you want to come along for the ride. But I think this fall is going to be a lot of fun.
Agreed.
Anything else to add there, Rob?
No, I'm good, man. You said it all, Coach.
He said it all, Coach. All right. Love y'all.